Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Crochet Creations by Cam. My name is Cam, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different in our tutorial than what I have shown you guys previously. So, I actually have this blanket that I have been working on for quite some time. I'm not one of the crocheters who does not have the ability to finish a blanket. I have finished many blankets. But this one is different because this is a temperature blanket. So as you can see, there's not really any rhyme or reason to the pattern of my blanket. And that is because each row is one color. I know there's multiple rows of a color, but each row is a different color, and that color means something to me. So there's many different, kind of ways to make a temperature blanket. So I actually have two projects right now. I have this one, which is a temperature blanket, and then I have another one, which is actually a mood blanket. So each color that I use corresponds to my mood. And today, I am teaching you how to do the stitch/pattern that I use for this blanket. So as you can see, I'm actually in the middle of a row, because when I stopped said row, I ran out of yarn, and that's why I stopped. So you're also going to be getting to see how I tie on new yarn. Now, there's lots of different ways to do it, but this is just the way that I do it, and it's pretty easy, so I'm going to show you guys. So let's get into it. First, you lay your two strands of yarn parallel to each other. It doesn't really matter which one's on top. I just tend to put my yarn that's attached to my project on the top. Then, you're going to take, I usually start from the one that's coming from the right, doesn't matter again. So, I'm going to cross one strand over the other, make an X, and then we're going to pass it back through again, so that it's over and under your piece of yarn. Pull it so that you have enough to make a knot. Then you're going to cross it over itself, push it through that loop that you just made, grab those two ends, and pull it as tight as you possibly can. Okay, that's one knot. Now we're going to make a second one by doing the same thing. So with our other yarn end, I'm going to put it over the other yarn and then back under. Use it to make a loop with itself and pass it through that loop. So this part is just, tying a regular knot. And then again, you're going to pull the two ends as tight as you possibly can. So once you've done that, you should have two knots and then, a little loop with the space in between. Now, you're going to take the long ends, so the end that's connected to your yarn ball and the yarn that's connected to your project. All you're going to do is pull them, and again, pull as tight as you can without, breaking your yarn. And now it will not come apart. Your yarn is going to stay. So now I'm going to cut off these ends, and I will save them for later because I use my yarn ends as stuffing. Cut them pretty much as close as possible without risking cutting into the knot or undoing the knot. So as you can see, I've cut it. Pulling, they're not coming apart. That knot is solid. So, now that we have attached our new yarn ball, we're going to keep crocheting our row. So, this stitch, since for some reason I didn't already say it, is called a moss stitch or also a linen stitch. Those are the two kind of names for it. I think there might be one other name, but I'm not sure what it is. But I usually call it a moss stitch. So, when I was doing this row, I ended on a single crochet, and then I chained one. Now, as you can see, we have a single crochet here. We're going to skip that. Here, we have a chain one space, so I'm going to single crochet into that chain one space, and chain one. And that is it. That is the moss stitch. So, again, single crochet here, we're going to skip that, crochet into the chain one space, single crochet, chain one, and then you just repeat that all the way across. So you're always, this yarn's kind of splitty, you're always crocheting into the chain one space, not underneath the single crochets, and then doing a chain in between. So essentially you're skipping a stitch, single crochet, chain one. And that is what makes these nice little kind of V patterns, zigzags, throughout your blanket. So it's a little hard to see that, when all of the rows are the same, but I'm going to show you another way to change colors. So to change colors at the end of the row, once I get there. So since this is a blanket for a full-size bed, I forgot to chain one. That is my biggest struggle. See, I just did a whole bunch and I didn't chain one in between. I haven't worked on this in so long. This is May like 22nd or something that this row is for. So, seeing as it's August 23rd right now, it's been quite some time since I worked on it. But anyway, this is the moss stitch. It's very simple. As long as you know how to single crochet and chain, then you're good to go. So obviously I didn't show you how to start the blanket since I don't want to start a whole new blanket to teach you guys that stitch, and rather than just kind of crocheting a swatch, I figured I might as well give you guys a tutorial while also working on one of my whips. If you don't know what a whip is, it's a work in progress. So this is obviously a whip that I've had going on for a very long time, since January, because it is for a whole year. So in the end, this will have 365 rows of moss stitch. And honestly, I don't really mind doing this blanket for a long period of time. Like, I could just sit and do it for hours and hours and hours, and then I'll only stop like once my wrists hurt. So it's really nice. You'd think that just doing a single crochet and a chain is boring, but at least for me, it's not too bad. So that's nice. So, we're gonna speed up from now on, just until I get to the end of this row, and then I will show you how I change colors at the end of my rows on something like a blanket. Okay, so as you guys can see, I am right about at the end of my row, and it can get kind of convoluted looking at the ends depending on how you're making your blankets. So here's the chain one space. There is a V. It's a little hard to see right here. So I'm just going to go to the next stitch. So I'm going to go into the stitch and pull up a loop, and I'm going to stop right there. Now, I'm going to take my next color, which for me right now is orange. I'm going to leave a good amount of tail here. And then I'm just going to pull that through. And that is me finishing my last single crochet in this row. So, now I'm going to grab my yarn, make sure it's your working yarn and not your yarn tail. Grab that. And I'm going to chain 2 to start my next round. Now, when you're making a blanket, sorry about the dog barking. Okay, when you're making a blanket, you want to turn your work in between every row, because you're always crocheting from, if you're right-handed, right to left, or if you're left-handed, left to right. So I'm going to turn my blanket around. Okay, so now I can work from right to left again. I'm going to cut my white yarn, leave a good tail, and I'm actually going to take both of these pieces of yarn. For the white, I'm just gonna pull it through up here so it's not bulking up my edge. So now these are going to go to the back of my piece. And now while I'm crocheting, I'm going to be crocheting over my ends just to keep them nice and secure on my blanket so nothing comes unraveled. So we've done our chain 2, which is kind of our first stitch of the round. We're going to insert our hook into the first chain 1 space of the round, making sure that our hook is also going underneath both of our yarn ends. I'm going to single crochet, chain 1, skip the single crochet, go into the chain 1 space, single crochet, and chain 1. And you're just gonna keep going. So you want to make sure with every stitch you're going underneath both of your yarn ends so that they are nice and secure. Make sure you're pulling them taut so there's no bumps sticking out in the back. And as you can see, you can hardly see them since they match the color from the last round and the color you're crocheting with. So there's different ways to do this, but this is just how I do it. Missed my chain 1 yet again. So there are some, better ways to do it that are a little more complicated, but when I started this blanket, I was not nearly as proficient in crocheting as I am now, and I didn't know a lot of the strategies that I now know, which would make my blanket look a little bit better. But this blanket's just for me, so it's okay if there's mistakes. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect, and nothing will be, but you just gotta do your best. So that's the end of my orange end. We'll cut that later. Now we're just gonna keep going over our white. Making sure that we are chaining 1 in between every single crochet stitch. And as you can see now that I've done some of this row, you get that nice little dip, and that is what the moss stitch does. So if you were just doing only single crochet, you wouldn't have this right here, which is just into the chain 1 space. It would just be straight lines of crochet. So I really like the way that this pattern works out. And it's super simple, but it looks really nice. So that's one of the things I really like about it. If you guys follow me on my social media, specifically Instagram, then you can go back and see the very first reel that I posted was of me crocheting at work, and I was actually crocheting my mood blanket. So not this one, but it looked a lot like this, just a lot uglier, because I did a very bad job of picking the colors for that one. And after I realized I hated it, I felt it was too late to go back and frog it. Plus, I had already bought so much yarn for it, so I'm just going to have an ugly blanket, and that's okay. Actually, that one does look a little different, because for that one, I'm just doing half double crochets. I'm not doing the linen stitch. But the theory behind that one's the same. So if you want to make your own temperature blanket, you don't have to wait and start on the new year. You can start it at any time, and you don't have to do it for a full year. You can do it for as long as you want, or until your blanket is the length that you would like. You can even make like a table runner or a scarf or something if you want a little bit of a smaller project. That'll be a lot quicker. But if you are doing a full year, I would recommend not doing anything, or not using any yarn, I should say, that is thicker than a 4-weight. So that's the weight that I'm using. It is a worsted weight yarn. This is Big Twist value yarn, which is Joann's brand, just pretty standard 4-weight acrylic yarn. It's actually quite soft. I don't particularly like Red Heart's acrylic yarn. The Red Heart Super Saver, I do think it's a little bit scratchy. I tend to prefer the Big Twist myself, but everyone's opinion is different, and honestly, the texture is kind of different from color to color. There's a little bit of variation there. So that's why I like to feel my yarn before I buy it, especially if I'm making something that's going to be worn, or in this case, the blanket is going to be rubbing on my skin, so I want to make sure I don't hate the way that it feels. But it's very soft. I really like the texture of it, so I'm pretty happy with my yarn choice here. The one thing about yarn like this, and honestly Red Heart is the same way, is that it's really splitty because it's very loosely woven yarn. Which can be annoying, but you just gotta get used to it. And know how to fix your mistakes. Don't get too frustrated with yourself. If you feel like you are, make sure you're taking a break. But if you are interested in making a blanket with this pattern, and you're not sure where to start because I didn't teach you that, basically all you have to do is chain. Do a really long chain until you get the width of the blanket that you would like. So for me, I measured, or I think I looked up how wide a full-size bed is, because that's what I have. It's a full size. And then I just made my blanket like a couple inches longer than that on either side when I was doing the chains. And I was using a tape measure to check. And then once you have your chain to your desired width, again, width of the blanket, not length, because the rows are what makes the length, then you just do this stitch into either the back loops or the back bump of your chain. So if you don't know how to make a chain or crochet into a chain, I do have a tutorial, so I will link it right up here for you. I show you in my tutorial how to crochet into the back loop and also how to crochet into the back bump. So when I was starting out this blanket, I crocheted into the back loop because I did not know about the back bump method, which I think tends to look better. It gives you a straighter edge at the bottom of your blanket. So that is what I would recommend. It is a little bit slower and a little bit more work, but in the end I think it's worth it because of the outcome. So again, make sure to check out that tutorial if you're not sure how to start. But yeah, all you have to do is make a chain to your desired blanket width, and then you skip the first chain from your hook as always, single crochet, chain 1, and then single crochet into the next stitch. And then when you're doing, excuse me, not the next stitch, you skip a stitch and then single crochet. And then from there you just do what I'm doing right now, which is single crochet, chain 1, and making sure you're only single crocheting into the chain space, and not into the single crochet space. And that is it. So it is super easy. It's very beginner friendly. You know, if you want it to be a quicker project, all you have to do is use a thicker yarn with a bigger hook. You know, make sure you're using the right hook for your yarn, and then your blanket will go by a lot quicker. As long as you're not doing, you know, something like a temperature blanket where it would end up way too big using like a super thick blanket yarn or something like that. But if you just like the way that the pattern works up, get yourself a nice chunky blanket yarn and have at it. If you're doing that and you want to, you know, be able to see the design better, I suggest getting some kind of variegated yarn or ombre, that kind of thing, just so that you can see the pattern better. I made a bunch of people in my family moss stitch square blankets. So it's the same stitch, but instead of in rows, it is in rounds, but it's a square. So if you guys are interested, I do have some yarn for that. Now that it's getting closer to fall, you know, classes are starting. It's still pretty hot out, but soon enough, it will be getting kind of chilly. Spooky season is coming. I'm very excited. I love Halloween. So I would be happy to make a tutorial of the moss stitch square blanket if you guys are interested. It's very fun, super quick to make if you're using blanket yarn. It just takes me probably about 5 hours for a blanket, depending on how big I'm making it. It's super fun. So make sure to let me know in the comments if that is something that you guys would be interested in. There we go. These are the 2 rows that we did in this video. And if you have any questions about the moss stitch or any other part of this tutorial, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. But that is all that I have for you guys, so make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if it was helpful for you. Again, drop a comment down below with any questions, video requests, tutorial requests, anything like that. Subscribe to my channel to see more of this kind of content. I post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Mondays and Fridays, I post tutorials just like this, and every Wednesday I post a crochet vlog. Those are always fun, so make sure to check those out. All of my social media is linked in the description if you want to see more content from me of the, you know, different style than just long-form videos like this. And then also linked below, I have my website as well as my Etsy shop. So if you're interested in anything that I make, or if you have a custom item request, go ahead to those links below. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!